Hey everybody, what's going on? Commander Crane here. We're back with the first deck tech. Alrighty, so I've got two decks we're actually going to show off today. So obviously you saw, because you clicked on the video, it's going to be Gruul Dragons in Pioneer. So we've got two different lists we're going to work with today. You'll see why there's two. You can actually see it on screen right now. But man, I am excited to talk about this deck today. So I guess both of them, a little bit of backstory. So, obviously, you guys know me if you've seen my streams. I like dinosaurs, I like dragons, I like big creatures, Galtas and Glory Bringers. And, well, we've got some Glory Bringers today that we're going to play. We're not going to play, we're going to show you how to play them and why we're playing them. But, man, again, if you like this kind of stuff, like the video, share it, whatever, awesome decks by me. Whatever. So we're going to hop right into it. So our first list today is Gruul Obosh Dragons. So obviously it's Obosh. It's a companion. For those who don't know, so Obosh the Prey Piercer, 3/5 for 5. Companion, your starting deck contains only cards with odd CMC. If it starts you control with an odd converted mana cost would deal damage to a permanent, it deals double that damage. So obviously very powerful card. And luckily for us, a lot of the best dragons in Pioneer are already odd CMC. We've got our elves. It works out great, honestly. Very, very little deck restrictions, which is really cool. So we're going to hop right into it here. We're going to talk about why we're playing specific cards and things of that nature. So obviously we got Obosh as our companion. Awesome card. Definitely late game, being able to just grab the Obosh, play it. Half the time we just turn our creature sideways, and that's good enough to win. What's also really nice, if you don't have a 3 somehow, you can also just go Elf, grab the Obosh, next turn follow up with whatever, works out great. So, creatures. We got 4 Elvish Mystic, if it'll show up there. There we go. We got 4 Elvish Mystic, 4 Land of Elves. Obviously, we are a bigger aggro deck. We're a monster deck, so we really need our accelerants. We got 4 elves. Well, 8 elves. We got 4 Elvish Mystics, 4 Land of Elves. Most of the time, you want to keep a hand with an elf. Occasionally, there's times where you can keep a hand that doesn't have them. We'll explain that more at the end. We've got 3 Shivan Devastators. Probably my favorite card from Dominaria United. It's awesome. I mean, it's a fireball with wings. I mean, it's 1 red and X, flying haste, enters battlefield with X/1/1 counters on it. Obviously, we're allowed to play it in our Obosh build because, it's odd CMC. It's 1 red. It works out awesome. Scales really nice. Sometimes we play it on turn 3 as a 3/3 flying haste. Other times we play it on like turn 5 or 6, and it's just a 6/6, 7/7, whatever, giant flying beat stick. Only playing 3. I was playing 2. We decided to go up to 3 just because of that late game reach is really nice. Also being able to play it on turn 3 as a 4/4, well, as a 3/3, and then follow up with another dragon is really good tempo for us. So, Shivan Devastator, really fun card to play. Watch out for Fatal Push. So, next creature, Bone Crusher Giant. You guys know what Bone Crusher Giant does. I mean, this card's incredible. Stomp for 2 mana, 2 damage to, damage can't be prevented, deals 2 damage to any target. Flip side's a 4/3 beat stick. I mean, this card's incredible. It's a 4 of, because we're Obosh, so to a certain extent we're limited on the removal we can play, and this is the one we're going to play. So 4 Bone Crusher Giant, awesome turn 2 play. Then we have 2 Klothys, God of Destiny. So for those who don't know what this does, 4/5 for 3 indestructible God. As long as your devotion to red and green is less than 7, it's not a creature, meaning you have to have 7 pips. If you don't, can't attack or block. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, exile a card from a graveyard. If it's a land, you make red or green. Otherwise, you gain 2 and deal 2, which is a really great card. Against a lot of aggressive decks, playing this on turn 2 can be a huge tempo swing. Colossus overall, amazing card. One of the best reasons to play Gruul, regardless of what deck you're playing in Pioneer. If you're playing red-green, Colossus needs to be in the 75 somewhere. Card is absolutely incredible. Highly suggest playing it. So then we have 4 Glorybringer. Arguably the best creature in the deck overall. Glorybringer, incredible dragon. Probably one of the best of all time. So 4/4 for 5, flying in haste. You may exert Glorybringer as it attacks. When you do, it deals 4 damage to target non-dragon creature an opponent controls. For those who don't know what exert is, when you exert it, it does not untap during your next untap step. Overall, Glorybringer, incredible card, keeps the board down, gets rid of pesky blockers. It just gets through. And also with 4 damage, it kills about 90% of the most playable creatures in the format. And the ones it doesn't kill, we've got other answers for. So Glorybringer, amazing card. And also, for a playset, they're like, it's $1 a piece. I mean, this card is one of the most underrated cards probably in the format. 4 Goldspan Dragons. So, for those who have played Standard recently, you know what this card does. 4/4/5 Flying in Haste. When it attacks or becomes a target of a spell, create a treasure token. Treasures you control have tap, make 2 mana instead of 1. Obviously, Goldspan Dragon is an incredible Magic card. Even at worst case scenario, you go to attack and they kill it in response. You get a treasure for, at least your trouble. Goldspan Dragon's incredible. I mean, just being able to curve this on turn 3 is backbreaking, or even turn 4 is still great. Even turn 5 is great. I mean, Goldspan Dragon, incredible card. I love playing this card. It's a 4-of. So then we have 3 Stormbreath Dragons, one of the OGs of the dragons, of the 5-mana ones. So Flying Haste, protection from white, as 5 and 2 red, Monstrosity 3, which means it gets 3 1/1 counters on it. When it becomes monstrous, it deals damage to each opponent equal to the number of cards in that player's hand. Really, Stormbreath Dragon, essentially what it boils down to is we wanted another 5-mana dragon, and this was our best option we had. The other argument was Skargan Hellkite. I really do like Skargan Hellkite. I think that card is very powerful in general, but just based on how the current metagame was unraveling and how it is at my local metagame, I decided to play Stormbreath Dragon over Skargan Hellkite. If your local metagame doesn't have a lot of white, yeah, maybe give Skargan Hellkite a shot. The card is pretty solid, but that was the dragon I decided to go with in the 5-drop slot, because we want him having haste. So we're going to move to the Planeswalkers. So 2 Domri, Anarch of Bolas. This card is a very underrated card in my opinion as well. Red, green, 1, 3 loyalty. Static ability, creatures you control get +1/+0. You can give it a loyalty, add red or green mana to your mana pool. Creature spells you cast can't be countered this turn. Incredible card. Incredible. I mean, and then the -2 is a fight. This card does a little bit of everything that a Gruul deck wants, especially this kind of deck. It ramps you. Your creatures can't be countered, which in the metagame is incredible. I mean, basically just telling your blue-white control player, yeah, you need removal for this. This spell's going to resolve. Overall, Domri's an incredible card. Giving another +1/+0 basically turns all of our dragons into Thundermaw Hellkites. And you guys know how much I love Thundermaw Hellkite having the 5 base power. So basically, having all of our dragons be Thundermaw Hellkites is incredible. And then the -2 fight is awesome. I mean, we can scale up if our removal doesn't remove, a creature that's a little bit bigger. Overall, incredible card. I love playing 2. I almost played 3. I decided to just go with 2. But if you wanted to go to 3, I wouldn't blame you. This card is incredible. So then, and then also, we'll talk about this after Kiora too, but then we have 2 Kiora Behemoth Beckoner. 7 loyalty, 2 in blue-green hybrid. Whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. -1, untap target permanent. So, couple things with why we're playing these walkers in particular. So the main reason is, 1, with our Land Elves and Elvish Mystics, if we go turn 1 Elf and turn 2 hit our second land drop, we can go right into the walkers, which is going to ramp us more for our next dragon. What's also funny too is if you have 2 elves in hand, you can go turn 1 Elf, turn 2 Walker, tick up or tick down in Kiora's case, play another elf. That way we're going to hit our dragons on turn 3, which is incredible. Turn 2 Kiora and turn 2 Domri, you really can't beat either one. Really just depends on where you're at. There's some games where you want to be aggressive, so going turn 2 Domri, turn 3 Dragon, attacking for 5 is awesome. Sometimes you want the card draw. It really just depends on the metagame, overall the matchup, sorry. But overall, Kiora, incredible, incredible card. I love playing both of these cards. Also, what's funny is the untapped target permanent is incredible with Glorybringer, because with Glorybringer, it doesn't untap during its untap step, but you can untap it with the Kiora and just get the beats in every single turn. Absolutely incredible. I love that ability with Glorybringer. Part of the reason we're actually playing Kiora in this list. So we go to spells. 2 Crater's Claws. It's just a really big X spell. It's X in red. Sorcery deals X damage to our creature player. Deals X +2 if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, which look at that. A bunch of our creatures are power 4 or greater. So overall, Crater's Claws, just a really good removal spell. Again, because we only can have odd CMC spells. We're not able to play like Mizium Mortars. We're not able to play those kind of removal spells. So when we need to go big, Creator's Claws are really great at doing that. Also, you can just throw it at their face. You don't even have to remove a creature. You can just go Dragon, untap, Creator's Claws with Ferocious, just blast them. You don't even... Anyway, started blasting. That's basically what Creator's Claws is. So, 2 artifacts. The Great Henge. So, this card... I love this card. So, 7 and 2 green... Costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. You can tap it for 2 green and gain 2 life. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under control, put a counter on it, and draw a card. Great Henge, incredible magic card. Like usually in this style of build, you're not looking to rush out the Great Henge as fast as you can. Really, Great Henge is just a really good value play, which late game it gives us ramps us, gains us life, can draw us cards when we play more dragons. Overall, Great Henge is a very, very powerful card. But I know what you're thinking, like, oh my goodness, $123 for 2 copies, that's outrageous. Great Henge is not mandatory for this deck at all. If you want to play 4 Creator's Claws, that's fine. If you want to go maybe to 3 Domri and something else, like another Creator's Claws, that's perfectly fine. There's a lot of great substitutes for Great Henge. Quite frankly, if you want to play more removal, I would even suggest Spitflame. I think Spitflame has a lot of potential in a deck like this. I'm going to try it out. I don't know how good it's going to be, but there is a lot of great substitutes for Great Henge. Don't make it seem like you have to play it to build this list, because this list is only $400 to build, which in Pioneer decks is very cheap. Right there, that cuts over a fourth of the cost out of the deck. So overall, if you want to not play Great Henge, that's perfectly fine. You do not have to spend the $60 a piece to get them. Just late game, it can give you that reach that you need, which is awesome. So we're going to shift over to the lands. So lands, we've got 1 Boseiju. Obviously, I'm not going to explain Boseiju. This card is incredible, gets rid of problematic permanents. Overall, it's free, it's great, we love Boseiju. 4 Crag-Crown Pathways. Obviously, we're a dual-color deck in Pioneer. We need some dual lands. Crag-Crown and Timber-Crown are great. Most of the time, you're going to be playing this on red if you don't need the Land of War off turn 1, because we're primarily a red deck. I would say you need at least 2 green, like Great Henge, but once you get 1 green, you're generally good, unless you're double spelling. Crag-Crown, awesome. 3 forests. They're forests. Enough said. 2 Haven of the Spear Dragon. This is definitely one of the most fun lands in the entire list. So, taps for colors, or taps for 1 mana of any color for a dragon spell. And then 2 and tap, sack it, return a dragon or Ugin from your graveyard to your hand. We're not playing any Ugins, but we're playing dragons. So Haven of the Spear Dragon is really, really great late game. If you're playing against like a mid-range or control deck, it's a great way to get those dragons back once they die, assuming they don't exile them. You get it in a couple shots with your Glorybringer, it gets, cast down or whatever, grab it back, keep the smashing going. Haven is an awesome card. That's why I love playing 2 of them. 4 Carplusian Forest, another Dominaria United card that I was very happy that we received. It's a dual land. And what you're saying, the red or green, I can take damage from that. Having the mana consistency in this deck is extremely important. It feels really bad when you get your opener and you just have a bunch of mountains and a haven and you've got a whole bunch of elves and you can't cast your spells. Most of the time, you're only going to take maybe 1 to 2 damage from this in the early game. But a lot of the time, you're not taking as much damage as you think. It's really not bad. I love playing Carplusian Forest. It's an immediate, untapped 4 of, no matter where you're at in the game. 2 Lair of the Hydra. Obviously, we're a green creature deck. We're playing Lair of the Hydras. Obviously, incredible land, late game, being able to get in there with the Lair. It's really awesome. Love playing Lair of the Hydra. 4 mountains. We are playing more mountains than forests just because we're primarily a red deck. We need to get that double red pip, so we're playing a lot more mountains. We're playing 1 more mountain than forests. And then 4 Stomping Ground. It's dual land. Enough said. It's the best land in our deck, arguably. Overall, Stomping Ground is incredible. Want that mana consistency. You really need the Stomping Ground. If you want to go for a budget option, you can play Rockfall Vale. I know those are only around $1 a piece, but if you want the consistency, Stomping Ground is where it's at. You're going to take 2 damage, but it's untapped. It's the color you need on whatever turn you need. Stomping Ground's awesome. Obviously, enough said. So we're going to move to the sideboard. So just a quick disclaimer, this sideboard is very local meta oriented. I would change it a little bit, going to a bigger competitive event, but this is what we've got right now. So we got 2 Blossoming Defense. Obviously, in some matchups, we need to protect the dragons. It's a really great card. It's also really great with Gold Span. If you tap out for your Gold Span, they go to kill it. In response, you make the treasure token. You can sack it with the Blossoming Defense and get another treasure just for fun. So Blossoming Defense is awesome. If you want to play Snakeskin Veil, that's also very good. I chose Blossoming Defense, maybe because I played a lot of that card in Standard, but that's up to you. We got 1 Grafdigger's Cage. Those pesky graveyard decks, those birds, they love coming out of the graveyard, and we're not allowing it. It's also really good against Collected Company decks. That's honestly the main reason I have it in here, is to double dip. It's really good against the Arclight Phoenix decks. It's really good against like elves that just have those pesky Collected Companies. 1 Pithing Needle, really just a good catch-all. You can name a Planeswalker, you can name a Witch's Oven, you can name really whatever. Pithing Needle, awesome sideboard card to have. Just a one-off, you never know when you need it. 2 Soul Guide Lanterns. We need Graveyard Hate, and we're Obosh, so this is our best option. Obviously, exile a card from a graveyard. You can sack it, exile each opponent's graveyard, or draw a card, cash in if you need. Great sideboard card for obviously those pesky graveyard decks. 2 Bouncers Beatdown. So this is a one that not a lot of people are playing. I think this card is absolutely incredible. So let's read what it does. So it costs 2 to cast if it targets a black permanent. Bouncers Beatdown does X damage to target creature or planeswalker, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. If that creature or planeswalker would die this turn, exile it instead. So Bouncers Beatdown is one of the cycle of color hoser removal spells from Streets of New Capenna. So what I really like about Bouncers Beatdown is it's a removal spell. It's kind of a fight spell, but it's not reliant on you targeting a creature. So what's really great is if you have, like normally like with a fight spell, if they kill your dragon or whatever's fighting in response, the spell fizzles. This is going to resolve no matter what, which is really great. And it's also not a fight spell. So actually part of the reason I was playing this, again, local meta, was there's a guy up here in northern Michigan that plays a lot of merfolk. So he was playing Master of Waves. The problem is as protection from red. So I needed to find a spell that gets through. Bouncers Beatdown does the trick. I played Bouncers Beatdown and had 2 Llanowar Elves, did 1 damage to the Master and killed it. So Bouncers Beatdown's incredible. What's also really great is, and this is kind of a long shot, it can help kill Shieldred a little bit. I know it only costs 1 black as opposed to the 3. Normally, without the very specific metagame in northern Michigan, I would say you probably can play Soul Seer. So Soul Seer, actually here, I'll even just pull it up real quick. Soul Seer. This probably is what you should play over Bouncers Beatdown, but I think both are excellent options. So here's Soul Seer. I didn't want to go that. I just want to pull up a picture. There we go. Soul Seer. 2 in a red, instant, 5 damage to a creature planeswalker. That permanent loses indestructible until end of turn. You probably could play that over Bouncers Beatdown, but it all depends on what your metagame's like. This also kills Shieldred efficiently, because most of our dragons can only deal 4 to Shieldred, whereas this is 5, gets it out of there. Great card in general. So, again, both are great options. If you want to play both, go for it, honestly. Not a bad option. So, then we've got 1 Broken Wings. Really just a good catch-all. Again, we're Obosh. So it's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, whatever. Those are our options. So we wanted a 3-mana effect that can really kind of deal with permanents. That we want a very specific removal spell. So, Artifact, obviously, there's some pretty good artifacts in the metagame right now. It kills, Witch's Oven. I mean, it kills vehicles. It kills whatever. Enchantments, it's great. It blows up like Omniscience. It blows up. Oh man, what else we got? What other? I'm trying to think of good enchantments right now. Whatever. You guys know what they are. Great enchantments. And then obviously creatures with flying. Other dragon decks, which that won't happen. But I mean, what is it? It blows up Tempest Djinn, blows up a Sky Sovereign even with the artifact. I mean, you can get rid of a lot of good permanents with the flying. So Broken Wings, just a good one-of, good catch-all, awesome card. Then we have 2 Rampaging Ferocidon. So this was more of a local metagame call. There's a lot of like life gain in particular in the metagame up here, so I wanted to have an effect that's really good at that. I mean, you can bring it in as control, Oh, my Great Henges are not good. You can swap in the Rampaging Ferocidon. Overall, just a really incredible card. It's also really good against the mono black decks. They seem to have a lot of life gain, especially with Shieldred. Be able to shut that down. so that way you can get in that lethal damage. Oh, and it's also really good against creature decks, especially if you're on the play. If I'm against like elves, I'll bring this in on the play a lot of the time, and it just automatically shuts them down. Then we've got one Rhythm of the Wild. Awesome card. I know a lot of people play this in Commander. Enchantment. Creatures spells you control can't be countered, and non-token creatures you control have Riot. So with Riot, it either has haste or a +1/+1 counter. We're not really playing it for that in particular. A lot of the reason we're playing this is because of the uncounterable. Not having our creatures be able to get hit by Disdainful Stroke and Absorb is incredible. It's a great effect, so that's why we have just the one. If you wanted to play a couple of these in Skarg and Hellkite, that's an amazing combo. So if you ever wanted to try it sometime, I used to play it. It's awesome. I really like Rhythm of the Wild. And then we have 2 Sweltering Suns. Pretty simple. It's a board sweeper. Sometimes we play against those really, really fast aggro decks and we need to clear the board. You bring in the Sweltering Suns. Just good, solid board wipe. You could play Anger of the Gods if you're really worried about, like their creatures getting reanimated. We like Sweltering Suns, so that way we've got more Colossus food. Because being able to wipe the board and then have a bunch of Colossus food, that's one way to get you back in the game or get you really far ahead. So overall, this deck list, it's really fun. I really love the Obosh build. Obosh, I would say actually getting it, especially late game, it happens quite a bit, especially when you're getting the Great Henge online. You just have so much mana that you're able to just grab it and play it in the same turn, especially with Goldspan Dragon, with all the treasures you get. Just overall, awesome card. I really love this deck. So we're going to check out our other dragon list today. So this dragon list is not an Obosh build, and there's going to be a familiar faces in here. I really like this list. The origins of this list essentially is there was one day I kind of had an itch to play Dragonlord of Tarka, which we're going to go over that card for those who don't know it in a second. Really like Dragonlord of Tarka, and I wanted to play Dragonlord of Tarka. I built this list. It secretly was incredible, and we're going to share it today. Also, I'll leave a link in the description below. Someone across state on the other side of Michigan was also playing this at a local event. If you want to check this deck out in action, he played this exact 75 to my knowledge. It's really awesome. Check it out. Awesome. So, it's going to be very similar to the other list, except obviously we're not Obosh, so we can play odd CMC spells. So, starts off normal. 4 Elvish Mystic, 4 Land of Wolf, whatever. That's normal. We've got 4 Sylvan Carry added. So I know a card that you normally only see in Mono Green Devotion and like the Jeskai Ascendancy combo. We got Sylvan Carry added. Green and 1, 0/3 Defender with Hexproof. You can tap it for 1 mana of any color. Sylvan Carry is incredible. This card is secretly really, really, really good. It blocks, just like you can block random like Swift Spears, or you can block random whatever 2/2s. Just having that option to just be able to invalidate opposing like small attackers is great, and it fixes our mana. It's ramp, it's great. If you don't get the elf hands, you can keep a good carry-added hand too. It's really great, especially with some of our big spells we've got later on. And once again, can't play this in the Obosh build because it's not an odd CMC spell. That's why we're not playing it. Card's really great, though. I love Sylvan Caryatid. I know they're one of the more pricier cards in the format. I think they're around $8, which is not bad. But if you really have to find a substitute, you could play like Paradise Druid, but nothing really beats Sylvan Caryatid. This card's incredible. If you don't have them for Pioneer, I highly suggest picking them up. So we're going to move to Bone Crusher Giant. Same as before, 2 Bone Crusher Giants. We're not playing the full 4 because this deck is a little more rampier than the other list. The other list, I would say, is straight dragon aggro, whereas according to this, especially with this one, dragon ramp, we're doing a little more ramping, but it's really great, especially the creature side, which I'll show you why in a second here. So we have 2 Clothis. Clothis, same thing as the other one, it's just a great card. If you're playing Gruul, you got to play Clothis. It's simple. So now moving to one of my favorite cards, Thunderbreak Regent. 4/4 for 4, flying and haste. Not haste, just flying. Most of the other dragons have haste. Whenever a dragon you control becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, Thunderbreak Regent deals 3 damage to that player. Thunderbreak Regent is just an incredible card to play on curve. Playing this on turn 3, it's such a big, beefy flyer. Like if your opponent's playing spirits, your dragon's going to be bigger than theirs. If they're playing like really any aggro deck, your dragon's going to be bigger than their creatures. So overall, Thunderbreak Regent, incredible card to just curve into. And, you know, if your opponent plays on removal, that 3 damage, it does rack up over time. Especially if you're playing multiple Thunder Breaks. If you go turn 3 Thunder Break, turn 4 another Thunder Break, all of a sudden, if they want to kill one of your dragons, they have to take 6 damage. Incredible. I mean, I've played games where I have 2 Thunderbreak regions in play, my opponent's at 6, with a handful of removal spells. They're dead if they target the dragon. So, it's incredible. I really love Thunderbreak Regent. It's the best 4-drop dragon you can play. I know there's a handful out there now. Thunderbreak Regent's the best. And what's great, the card's pretty inexpensive. Same as before. 4 Glorybringer, 4 Goldspan Dragon. They do the same thing as before. Goldspan Dragon's, I'd say, maybe a little better in this deck, which I'll explain why in just a second here. But we're going to move to the big one. Dragonlord Atarka. Man, she is big. So, 7 mana, 5 red-green, 8/8 flying trampler. When a deal enters the battlefield, you divide 5 damage among creatures and planeswalkers. I mean, when you cast Atarka, something's going down. Whether or not you're killing one Shieldred, or you're blowing up a bunch of creatures, you're getting rid of a planeswalker and a blocker. I mean, Dragonlord Atarka is just big. She is big, and she's ready to go. So, Dragonlord Atarka, awesome magic card. If you'd like to play it in the Obosh build, you are able to play it in the Obosh build. You know, if you don't want to buy those great henges, you want to play some Atarkas, you can just easy swap. Dragonlord Atarka is very castable in the other deck. I just decided not to play it in there. There's also another reason why we're playing Dragonlord Atarka, which we'll get to that in a minute. Planeswalkers, only of the 2 Domries. We're not playing Kiora. Kiora is very playable in this list, but I'll kind of explain why we aren't in a minute. But Domri overall does the same thing as the other deck. Awesome. Love Domri. Spells, 1 Mizzium Mortars. So we have 1 Mizzium Mortars in the main board. Mizzium Mortars is a very interesting card in Pioneer, because removal in this format is not as efficient as Modern. Mizzium Mortars is a card that it kills about every creature overall, but what I really like about it is the overload. So instead of paying 2 to do 4, you can pay 6 to do 4 to all your opponent's creatures. So just having this removal spell when we're a ramp deck is incredible. It's an incredible effect to have. I love playing Mizzium Mortars. You obviously can see in the sideboard we're playing 2 copies. That's how much I love this card. If you're playing in a metagame that has a lot of aggressive creatures, Mizzium Mortars is your best option. I know normally Lava Coil is better, but in a big ramp deck like this, we want Mizzium Mortars. Incredible card. So we've got 1 Shatterskull Smashing, obviously functions as a flip land. It's great. You either play it just as the land, or you can, you know, in a pinch, you can just blow a bunch of stuff up. I really love Shatterskull Smashing. Again, not playing in Obosh because it has 2 CMC because it's a sorcery. So, great card. So probably my favorite card in the deck here, See the Unwritten. Wow, what a magic card. So 4 green sorcery. Reveal the top 8 cards of your library. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield, the rest in your graveyard. Claw out this food. If you control creature power 4 or greater, you may put 2 creatures into play instead of 1. The ferocious ability on this is absolutely incredible. See the Unwritten as a magic card. I mean, especially when you, even without the ferocious, if you just play this, I mean, you're going to be so far ahead. I mean, there's games where if you play it, you know, like assuming you have your Thunderbreak, which actually triggers the ferocious, which is awesome, you know, putting like Goldspan or Goldspan Atarka, like that is just absolutely absurd to do. So See the Unwritten's awesome. It's also why we like Bone Crusher Giant, because it helps with the ferocious earlier, so, and Thunderbreak, so that way when we actually curve into the See the Unwritten, we're able to get that ferocious off, which is awesome. We're playing 3 copies of See the Unwritten. Card is awesome. I love it. And then we have 1 Turntimber Symbiosis. It's kind of like See the Unwritten, except it's a little different. Obviously, it's a land. 4 green. Look at the top 7. You can put a creature card into play. If it's CMCS 3 or less, you put 3/1 counters on it. It's kind of like a pseudo See the Unwritten. Obviously, not as good as See the Unwritten, but overall, just an efficient free card to play. Also worth noting, if you want to play this in the Obosh deck, you are more than welcome to play it. You know, you could easily just cut, you know, like a forest or a lair. You could play Turntimber if you'd like. Card's cool. I really love Turntimber Symbiosis. So, that's all of our regular cards. Our lands, obviously, we have 2 flip lands over here, but then we're playing essentially the same mana base. The 1 Boseiju, 4 Crag Crown, 2 Forest, 2 Haven, 4 Carplusion, 2 Lair, 3 Mountain, 4 Stomping Ground. The only difference, obviously, is the Turntimber and the Shatterskull. Instead, that's 3 Forest, 4 Mountain. Now we're playing 2 Forest, 3 Mountain. exact same mana base. Nothing would change. I really love the Haven in this deck because with the Scythian Written, you're able to put stuff in your graveyard. So let's say you somehow flip 3 dragons, you can just grab it back too, which is awesome. Also worth noting, I'd like to mention, with Scythian Written, I tried a list a couple months ago with Storm the Festival. I really, really love Storm the Festival overall. The only problem I was having was the difference between 5 and 8 is huge in this deck. With the 5, I very rarely ever put 2 dragons into play. With Scythian Written, I'm almost always putting 2 dragons into play. Or at least, a dragon and a Bone Crusher, a dragon and a Clothis. Like, having the difference between 8 and 5 is incredible. I know there's the flashback. I know it changes things a little bit. But Scythian Written is the better card. Just play Scythian Written. It's better. Trust me. Love the card. So our sideboard obviously is going to be a lot different than our Obosh build. So we got 2 Tormod's Crypt. I really love Tormod's Crypt as an exile effect because a lot of other removal spells you have to dedicate usually like a turn or whatever to be able to play your graveyard removal. This just says I'm going to keep doing my thing and I'm going to disrupt your graveyard. I love Tormod's Crypt. Card's incredible. I love it. 3 Cindervines. This card probably is one of the best sideboard cards you can play in Gruul, just in general. Cindervines, it does a lot of heavy lifting. So red-green enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, Cindervines deals 1 damage to that player. Tap 1, sacrifice Cindervines, destroy target artifact or enchantment, deals 2 damage to that permanent's controller. Cindervines in general, I mean, man, this card, I feel like I bring this card in against everything that's not aggro. Against mid-range, you bring it in. They're playing a lot of artifacts and enchantments, you bring it in. They're playing control, a lot of, instant sorceries, you bring it in. They're playing Is It Phoenix? I bring it in. I mean, this card just does so much. It's incredible. I mean, you can keep hands where you don't even have any, early game acceleration. You can just play turn 2 Cindervines, and it does work. A lot of people disagree with me on this. I love bringing this in against mono red, or the, red-white aggro deck in Pioneer, because it blows up Eidolons. It does a lot of damage over time. When they're, going, spell, burn, you're also just chipping them, which is great. And it also blows up Chain to the Rocks, which can be a very big pain when you're trying to get in with your dragons and they keep, Chain to the Rocks. Use Cindervines, get it out of there. Love the card. Then we've got 2 Mizium Mortars. Card's incredible. We talked about it earlier. Love the card. 2 Bouncers Beatdown. Once again, I wanted a very specific removal spell for Master, not Master of the Pearl Trident, Master of Waves. There we go. A card's still great. I love playing Bouncers Beatdown. The card is still incredible. It's not a fight spell, so if they have a Death Toucher, if you fight, it's not a fight. So you're able to keep your creature. Again, if you want to play Soul Seer, I think that's a great option too. If you want to play something else, depending on your metagame, I think this is probably the most flexible spot in the deck, because we've already got the Mizium Mortars. You'll see we have the Sweltering Suns. If you don't want to play as much removal, honestly, not a bad plan. 2 Frostodon does the same thing as before. 1 Rhythm of the Wild does the same thing. 2 Sweltering Suns. We need to kill creatures sometimes, if we need to go onto the mid-rangey dragon deck, we can do that. Just bring in the removal, and we'll do it. And then 1 Shifting Ceratops, just the one free spot in the deck that I had when I was building it. I just wanted something against the blue decks. Shifting Ceratops. I know it's not on flavor because it is not a dragon, but it's Shifting Ceratops. It's incredible. For those who've seen my dragon decks, my dinosaur decks, you guys know what this card does. Absolutely incredible. So, couple other big differences I want to mention, because obviously we're not an Obosh list. That means the list is a little bit different. The sideboard is a lot better in the Dragon Ramp deck, I would say. Honestly, you could even just play the regular Obosh list, not play Obosh, and you can kind of, tool with whatever you want, realistically, if you mixed both decks, you could get something pretty good too. I just like having the option to play the Obosh overall. Definitely the Obosh list is a lot faster. It's a lot more aggressive, I would say. The Dragon Ramp deck, I would say, it definitely can fight a little bit better against mid-range and control, I would say. But overall, both lists are a blast to play. I love playing Dragons of Pioneer. It's a lot of fun synergies. If you're looking for other budget options, I would say with this deck only being $300 to just buy the entire deck in Pioneer is incredibly cheap. realistically, if you wanted to cut the deck down, you could really trim a lot of the fat from this. You know, like with Goldspan Dragon, you know, they're still $20 a piece. That's still pretty pricey. If you want to play Skargan Hellkite, that card is cheap. You can just slot Skargan Hellkite in there. Boom, you're ready to go. There's a whole bunch of the cost off there. I would say the one card in this list you really can't trim is definitely the Sylvan Caryatids. Just being able to ramp, having the hexproof, this card's absolutely incredible. There's no substitute for Sylvan Caryatid. You gotta play those overall. So those are our dragon lists today. I'd like to thank you for joining today. Again, I will leave the decks in the description below for you to check them out, and I'll also leave the link of someone playing them at Liberty Coins if you want to check out the Dragon Ramp list in paper. If you have any other questions or concerns, feel free to comment. You know, say, hey, why aren't you playing this card? Why are you playing this card? What would you maybe change? That kind of thing. Feel free to submit anything. You know, let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd like to thank everybody for joining me today. Have a good one.